Well, hello and welcome to Little State Big Voices. I know this is awkward for you guys because normally Shahida does this intro and then she says, and my co host Tracy, and I say, hey, y'all. But Shahida is out today. But she is with us in spirit and she will be back as soon as possible, probably in the next recording. So today I want to continue on our journey with our Menopause in 4 Act series. And so today we are going to meet a physician who doesn't just treat symptoms, she challenges the systems behind them. And that's one of the reasons that we were so excited to introduce Dr. Ellana Stinson, aka Dr. Ellana, who is an emergency medicine doctor, a public health leader, and an unapologetic advocate for reproductive justice and racial equity. So, since arriving in Massachusetts, she worked in emergency departments all over, including your town, Dorchester, East Boston, you name it. And she's led community centered vaccine efforts at the Reggie Lewis Center. Y'all know Reggie Lewis in Roxbury, and pushed for policy change from the inside, serving on the board of trustees for the Massachusetts Medical Society. But her mission doesn't stop at the hospital doors. As the founder of Safo Hair, Dr. Stinson brings her medical knowledge and Southern herbal legacy to the beauty space. So, Dr. Stinson is bridging the gap between health and hair care. Her award winning line was born basically out of a desire to heal more than just your scalp. It's about giving Black women a safe place and clean, effective tools to care for ourselves in a world that, sometimes we're not always represented and we're left out of the health conversation entirely too much. So this is more than a conversation about menopause, about hair. It gets deeper than that. And we're going to talk about the intersections of aging, race, reproductive justice, and radical self-care, which is big and very important. So pull up a seat. Dr. Ellana is here to remind us that healing literally starts at the root. So, yes, I'm
That
so excited.
was great. Thank you. I was like, who is that person
I'm
she
talking
talking
about you, sis. I'm talking about you. And
about?
I was so blown away. I first encountered you. Well, I should back up. I've seen you on television, but I first encountered you in person at the Boston Wild Black Summit, How to Boston Wild Black Summit that just took place here. Where are you a member of Boston Wild Black?
I was a founding member. I need to just make sure my membership is up to date. But
Okay, okay.
yeah,
I'm all calling you out. It was like we
I
didn't pre.
think it is. If not, I'm gonna have to. You make me have to go check to make sure I'm up to date.
Yes, but we are so excited. I mean, I heard you speak on a panel and I was so touched by your personal journey as well as your professional journey. And it just ties in so beautifully with the conversations that Shahida and I have been having about menopause. And so one of the things that struck a chord, and I think you might have even seen me do some stuff with my eyes and my face. I have
Hmm.
a poker face. When you were talking about your personal menopause journey, it mirrored mine in a way that was just, it was so striking for me. So I have shared with our listeners that I started my menopause journey unexpectedly in my 30s, and you mentioned something similar. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so it was 30-31 for me. I also was diagnosed with thyroid cancer too around the same time. So it was almost like, did that lead to this? But then come to find out that it was just totally separate and had already been happening, and I just didn't recognize it and just so happened to incidentally find the thyroid nodule. But
Mm,
basically 30-31, your periods get irregular, start having all these mood swings and stuff that aren't typical with your PMS. And um one point they just stopped and I was like, this never happened before. So I go to the doctor and like she's like, all your labs are like off. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, and I had never had these labs before either. Actually, as a physician, I never asked for them. I didn't think to. Like, it's just not something that you go see your doctor. And I'm not an OBGYN, so these aren't things that I typically think about, like my estrogen, my AMH levels, my follicle stimulating hormones. Like, we learn about this stuff in med school, but I don't, you learn about things in med school, but you don't always think it applies to you until it happens, right? Like, this is my patient. These are things I do for other people, not for myself. So it
yeah.
wasn't something that I thought to like stay on top of because I had just gotten out of medical school. I wasn't like trying to do family planning or anything yet. So I just assumed that would be something when I'm ready to do that part, but never got to that part because my body was like, yep, we're done. So, I even went through egg harvesting even afterwards because what they were calling it was idiopathic ovarian failure, and was like, oh, you may pop in and out of it. And I kind of did through the years, but nothing like predictable. So the egg harvesting obviously failed, and I was just like, well, that's it. So we just started thinking about like, well, how do you go through this process, right? Because that's not something that we're taught. Like it does not pass down to us. Like our providers don't talk to us about it. Even in medicine, there's not a whole lot of conversations that happen around menopause because I think society just thinks once you hit that, they send you out to pasture to die, right? Like you're just an old
Yeah,
hag, but you're not old at 31. Like, what am I supposed
you
to
are definitely not old at
do?
31, and that is so unexpected. That is, and so just researching this project that we've been working on, and a little bit before that, because my experience happened when I was about 36. I was a little bit older than you, but I I thought maybe it was my IUD that affected me, but I learned so much about egg count, follicles. I was learning it as a response to what was happening to me, not as prior knowledge that I had in advance. So, I'm always like out here telling women, like, if you want to have children and you don't have them, or you want more children, get ask for your egg count. And and I know people are just like, why is this woman so interested in
Mhm.
my egg count? Because it is important. And like you said, you went to harvest, and these are things, you are a physician, you work in the field, so to speak, and it happened to you. And so it just goes to show that we are undereducated on this subject. Like you said, if you go to the doctor, they have a checklist, they go through their checklist, and if that's not on their list for you because it doesn't match up with your age profile, you're not going to have the conversation. it's
And I
it's
get that a lot too when I go to the doctor. They're like, "Oh, you're young." I'm like, "No, look at my birthday. I am not young." Or, "No, I want this." Like, and it's funny because in other countries, they automatically include all this in your physical exams annually.
interesting.
Yeah, they don't.
Like what countries are you thinking, like,
I
well,
don't
what countries, for example, it would it be
European,
like
some
Europe?
European countries, they automatically put it's part of your annual exam in labs. Like you check your reserves, you check your hormone levels. We don't do that typically as part of the annual exams.
So you bring up a point, hormone levels. So you are the founder of Safo Hair. And so this is a product that came out of your reaction to
Hmm.
some of the things you were seeing happen with your own patients. And of course, as a Black woman with black hair that grows out of your head, ethnic hair, I'm a 4C. So, I totally can identify. Talk to us a little bit about what you noticed and how Safo came to be.
Yeah, so shortly after that, I started having a lot of hair falling out in the showers. Like, we always have hair shedding, but I just was like, this is a lot more than normal. I felt like my hair patterns weren't the same anymore. Like, things were changing. I was breaking more. I was just like, this is strange. So it really sent me down a rabbit hole around how your hormone levels affect your hair growth and other things too, like your skin, you start to wrinkle, your weight gain, things like that. These aren't things that we're ever taught about, like just the
Mhm.
general public. And even in med school, I don't know if I knew how much like your estrogen levels affect how your hair grows out of your head, right? So if your estrogen levels drop during menopause, which they do, they just go through the toilet, your hair growth starts to slow down. Your hair goes into stages where it just starts shedding more often, and that's why you see so many older people with thinner hair,
Mm,
because they don't have the estrogen needed to promote hair growth. So you obviously need to talk to your doctors about like hormone replacement therapies or other things to kind of help supplement those spaces. But once your estrogen levels fall, like your male pattern hormones surge because your levels aren't where they need to be. So then you start seeing these balding episodes and things like that. And like the hormones play a role in just about every single thing. And like I knew it, but I didn't really think about it till it started happening to me, like I said. So it really sent me down this rabbit hole of saying, okay, so why is my hair shedding so much? How can we stop my hair from shedding so much?
mhm,
How can I even get my hair? I know I wouldn't get my hair back to where it was, like thick and really full, but like I wanted to stop what was happening. And I didn't, I went to a dermatologist here in Boston. It was like one of the top dermatologists. And I
mm.
remember she handed me some stuff. I was like, girl, I can't use this. I'm black. What are you talking about? And then the nurse pulls. I remember the nurse specifically pulls me in the corner. I think the nurse was black, and she goes, "I know. I'm so sorry. We get this a lot from our black patients." I said, "Well, you need to fix it. Like, what is wrong with this?" So I was like,
Right.
I got it, So I actually started doing my own personal research just to see what was on the market, like what was available, because there's stuff out there. Some of it is medicinal. I didn't want to get on anything that had medicine in it. And
Mhm.
I wanted something that was natural, and I needed something for my textured hair. I have 4C too. So it just went down a rabbit hole, and I was just frustrated. And my friend, we were at the eye lab at Harvard, and he was like, just start a hair care line. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm a doctor. I can't just start a hair care line. What does that
Now
mean?
see, that's a good friend. That is a good
I was like, I don't even know
friend.
where to start. He was like, and then interestingly, my uncle was doing hair care products in Alabama. I'm originally from Alabama, and he was doing a lot of herbal things that he had been passed down to him from his grandmother, my great grandmother. And I remember I called him up one day, and he was like, "Just go in your basement and get a crock pot." I was like, "You are trying to get me thrown in jail." So I just really like just took some of his knowledge and like my research. I have a chemistry background and just started digging and just really looking at like what actually was going on with my hair, and then did like interviewed a bunch of people, and not only were they having some similar issues, my age group at that time was not going through menopause, but they were actually having a hard time finding things for their hair type,
What's up?
their structured, their textured hair, and
No.
their textured hair, as well as some issues they were having that they couldn't get addressed on the market.
I, like I'm taking all of this in and I'm thinking about like the family legacy piece of it. Your uncle saying just do it, your friend saying just do it, because I think that's, one of the things as black women, we know so much. We solve so many problems for other people, but we don't always figure out how to spread the word properly or to monetize it. So I
Mhm.
love that not only did you figure out the solution for yourself, you didn't just leave it there. You wanted to, provide this solution for others, and you figured out a way to monetize that, because I love that for us. I love an entrepreneurial endeavor, as if you're not doing enough, saving lives and whatnot. But I'm so impressed by that. And I have a family member too, my sister-in-law, who's always cooking up a concoction in her
Mhm.
kitchen of some kind, a home remedy. She's like a modern day like medicine woman, basically. And I think that's something that we sometimes neglect, is that just because it's sold on a shelf, just because you can get a prescription for something, doesn't mean it's the right thing for you.
Mhm.
So talk to us a little bit more about why you went the natural route with your
Yeah.
product.
So, I mean, again, I'm from Alabama. My family's been there for 200 years, and I think I might have mentioned that on the panel, but I think that's really crucial to like my core and who I am and where a lot of my behaviors and thoughts come from. I grew up with like all these different like how do you stop a nosebleed? How do you break a fever type? Like go outside and get this. And then again, my uncle, who like he has a whole book of like medicine man type things and like how he treats things, but these aren't things that were effectively passed down because at one generation was like I'm ashamed of that type thing. So I mean,
Mhm,
but it still shapes how I think about things. So I think, what struck me was like how we moved away from that so much, and we were a lot I mean, granted, I could say healthier, but I don't really know. Our medicine is so much more advanced now. But just when you do anything naturally, it's safer and it's better, right?
mhm,
And I really started to see a connection or a lot of similarities with the beauty industry and the healthcare industry around disparities, and one
mhm,
thing that, we ended up being on a lot of times it's on medicines, right? And these medicines interact with all these other things. You can't do that. And, your medicines sometimes cause hair changes. And I wanted something that was natural and safe to use that didn't require a physician to go and prescribe to you. Something that was safe to use and free of toxic and harmful ingredients that have been linked to cancers and reproductive health issues. Because there's so many products on the market that we're not aware of that have hormone disruptors that lead to all of these reproductive health issues that you and I have had,
mhm.
and even some of the cancers that some of us have had. So I wanted to do something natural and safe, and really kind of dig back in a little bit into my own ancestral bag a little bit. But yeah.
And I would agree with you that yes, we are more advanced medically, but we're also advanced in other ways because we are in a fast food society. And that includes everything, wanting everything fast. We want our packages faster. We want our meals faster. So that means you might be microwaving something in plastic, which I'm
Hmm.
not a fan of. And my whole thing is like, okay, if I could put it in glass, if I could put it in a non-toxic pot or pan, like I'm looking for that solution. But as Black women, we are constantly dealing with our hair, and it's a labor of love. In that, be that braids like this, you know what I'm saying? What have they treated these braids with? What have they treated? The eyeshadow that I'm wearing. Like, how much metal is am I putting into my body unknowingly,
Hmm.
or toxins, just trying to uphold a standard of beauty as a
Hmm.
Black woman or as a woman in general. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough because I want to be as natural and organic as possible, but I'm gonna go down to the grocery store like everybody else, and I'm gonna get the
Well,
products.
that's the thing, right? McKinsey put out an article a few years back just indicating how, like, Black communities on average have to travel like 20% further to even get access to a safer quality product. So of course we're going to go to the grocery store, we're going to go to CVS, we're going to
Mhm,
go to that Chinese store on the corner where cuz it takes us so much longer to get to a Sephora or Ulta, and then the price points are a little bit higher. So
mhm,
that was the other thing. Like, I really was digging into the disparities just across the board, like how we access it, what products are on the market, where are most of our products made. They're made in China or India and China, right? Like, the
mhm.
regulations aren't the same as they are in the EU. Like, how much are they costing? So I really wanted to, like, be holistic around the approach of having things accessible to our community. Granted, I'm online right now, so everyone shops online, and then I'm hoping to expand into salons and some more retails locally. But that is really priority for me because we shouldn't have to just go to I almost said Kroger. I don't live in the South anymore. We shouldn't have to go
But
to
we have
Stop.
listeners all over the world. We actually have
Okay,
listeners as far as Africa. So
okay,
and we have listeners in Europe as well. So this is a
sweet.
conversation. It's a broad conversation because Black women are everywhere. Ethnic women are everywhere. The places you least suspect them, including Boston, including Rhode Island, including Switzerland, or wherever you can imagine us. And we're like I said, we're always looking for. I mean, at the end of the day, even if you don't get dolled up every day, you have to wash your hair
Yeah, you have
to,
to.
to maintain your hair. You have to maintain your skin. You have
So,
to maintain all of your body to keep it healthy.
and
And some products don't support
that's
health.
exactly why I chose hair care, because I was actually thinking about body as well, because our makeup as well isn't safe. The things we put on our lips, they're not, they have things in them that are probably not good for us, a lot of them. Um, in order, like, we're starting to see all these water resistance things, all this technology and makeup, but it's like, is it good long term?
You know what freaks me out that I've been seeing a lot of, and I don't mean to cut you off, but it's the all over body deodorants.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to get involved with that. I'm like, something about that
half
just
half the
doesn't.
stuff I'm like, why do we need this? Like, really? Do we?
Yeah,
Why? And I thought about that, but I think the one thing, even if people don't wear makeup, we all do our hair, and our hair,
everybody.
and Black women on average use far more products on our hair to manage it because society tells us we have to have it a certain way. So
Mhm.
just, we're almost forced because we can't just show, I mean, back, I don't want to say back in the day, but a few years ago, we couldn't just show up with our natural hair. Like, that
No,
was not a thing. Everyone was writing you up like, "What? This is my hair. What's wrong with you?" So
exactly.
we
God
were
forbid you have locks. God forbid you let your hair grow the way it grows out of your head naturally.
in the comments when you showed up like that, when you were really trying to at the forefront of all this natural hair movement.
Mhm.
I remember someone told me, "Oh, I love your popcorn hair." I'm like, "Girl, if you don't get out my face." My popcorn hair. She goes, "It's festive." I was like, "Is it?"
That's one way to look at girl.
So I
Mm.
mean, it was challenging, but required you to have to, like, put far more products on it. We just can't dry shampoo and go or shampoo and go. We have to shampoo, gel it, mousse it, moisturize it. We gotta do all the things to that hair. We put
Diet,
a lot of
diet,
products.
lay it to the side, all the stuff. And but part of that is also that comes from our culture, African culture. Of course, when they were doing it back in the motherland originally, it was like clays and herbs and all the, and and
Natural.
it, so we just always are gonna look ornate. Black, we can't help it. Like
We
that's
are, but it
us.
increases our exposure to these products
It
though by
does.
holding up with traditions and trying to look ornate. We're using things that don't have our best interests in mind.
And it's hair care is one start, and this all ties back into menopause, and why some women may be going into early menopause is
Hmm.
because now more than ever, especially with social media, there's this, there's so much pressure to get all these products and use all these products and do a makeup tutorial and you try this new hairstyle or whatever. But I even started noticing, like, maybe years ago, that I would buy things in a store, maybe buy a handbag, literally, you're like, it's
Hmm.
a purse. And there'd be a note in there saying California rules and regulations states that this may contain toxins that are dangerous for pregnant women. I was like, it's a purse. What
Yeah,
is in it? But
our
it's
clothes. Yeah, even the fabrics we wear. Yeah, yeah.
it's eye opening. It is eye opening
Our
to it's like
food.
to just walk around naked with no accessories.
I
Like,
mean, we can go way back if we needed to.
it's, what are we supposed to do? But I think this is a great start. This is Sappho and other natural products are a way to reclaim some of that autonomy about taking
Hmm.
care of yourself
Yep.
and about managing. And so, and people may be thinking, well, I'm already in menopause. Why does this even concern me that someone in their 30s, that concerns me because fertility is a huge issue.
Hmm.
Many people want to be parents and they sideline parenthood for a career. I'm going to
Hmm.
go to school. I'm going to get my multiple degrees. I'm going to, and Black women get the most degrees. We all know this. We're the most educated group in the country. Maybe you want to become a homeowner. Maybe you want to start a business. Like, when I'm 35, I'm going to start a family. It's like, what happens if you get to that point and something has prevented you um early, or it could just be biology. It could just be
Yeah.
born with this amount of eggs and now they're gone. Or one of my cousins, she in her 20s had a form of cancer that caused her to have her whole uterus removed, and she could
Hmm.
no longer be a mother. Harvesting eggs was not an option,
Well,
as you mentioned before. So, some of these things, like, we need to be having these conversations early and
mhm.
often.
And I think we also need to get rid of this whole notion of like traditional motherhood too. It took me a
Yeah,
while to get there. Like, even if you are healthy, you're still may never ever birth your own child. We have this idea of like what motherhood's supposed to be. Maybe that's just having a dog or adopting a child or being an auntie. Like, you have to like be open minded about what motherhood means for you and just be okay with anything happening. And like, if you're wanting a certain thing and if you want to birth your own child, you probably should start having these conversations and think about it in your 20s, and start
mhm,
thinking about and planning with your physician around like the egg harvesting, because you never know what can happen. You could go into early menopause, you could have a health condition and that requires you to like chemo, or might have to have your uterus taken out. Like, anything can happen. We don't ever think about these things until they do happen. But I
mhm.
think having a child is not the only thing you need to worry about with menopause, because estrogen, like I mentioned, is so important around everything, like your
Yeah,
metabolism. So like your metabolism slows down, you gain weight, you're higher risk of like all the things that come with obesity and weight gain. And then estrogen is very protective of your heart, so you're at risk of cardiovascular disease and issues at an earlier age. It protects your bones, and then you're at risk of like osteoporosis, and you start breaking bones. Old people, they break bones. It's like downhill from there. But you
yeah.
can't do anything if your bones aren't healthy, right? You can't move around and have the quality of life that you want. So like, estrogen is a big piece of every part of your life, and not just having a baby, even your brain health. Like, you start to have foggy brain, you can't remember things, you can't perform very well. Like, so you can't think, you're eating too much, you're gaining weight, you're at risk of having heart disease, and your bones ain't working. Like, you are I having a problem. So I think, when you hit menopause, it doesn't just stop there. You need to continue with the maintenance and like talking with your doctor. Just aren't like, okay, I'm in menopause, I'm just gonna wait till the end of life. Like, you still have to do a lot of health maintenance around that to make sure you're healthy, getting your bone scans, making sure they're on top of your cardiovascular health, and even like supplements and things like that to kind of help with your metabolism and your diet, controlling that, and like making sure you're staying mentally sharp.
I love everything that you said, and we have touched on so many of those subjects. The memory fog where we just like I literally the amount of things I forget on a daily basis ain't even cute. Like
Mhm.
I have a whole sticky note system. I went through a phase where I thought I was going through early Alzheimer's. Like it's so real. And then the hot flashes and all the good stuff. But
We didn't talk about that. Even those hot flashes affect your hair. All that sweating that sits on your scalp, like just oof.
And so that's, those are all factors. And like you said, it's not even about, okay, do you want to be a mother? It's not about, are you still a woman? It's about, okay, quality of life at the end of the day. Like how do you navigate this new landscape? Because menopause it's like literally a new chapter of your
Hmm.
life. And I think that, so many of these changes, you going bald headed, you sweaty, you're hot, you're mad. Like that can lead to some depression, and we we spoke
We
on that
didn't talk about
too.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's just like, who am I? There are moments when sometimes as women we sit in this journey and we're like, who am I now? Like I feel like I'm not myself.
Well,
And
I think that's why your podcast is so critical because, like, you get to this point, like, who am I, as opposed to just expecting it to happen. Like, when we were little
Mhm.
girls, we were expected to have our periods. We never questioned, who am I? You're like, I'm in womanhood now. Like, if
Yeah.
these are things that are discussed with us, we would expect the transition and be able to transition and not get so depressed because it's something so shocking and surprising to us. So, like, these conversations are critical so that more women aren't getting there and trying to figure out, like, who am I? Where'd I go? This is
Yeah.
part of your aging. You're living, you're growing, you're becoming smarter and wiser, and your body's transitioning to a new phase.
And there's so much power in sharing information. You may not need that information, but it's good to have a heads up and know what could possibly happen because no one's experience is going to be the same. But it's just so crucial to be sharing information. Now, I also want to touch on something you mentioned about having conversations with your doctor, asking for certain tests. I think a lot of people so I find that there are different kinds of people. Some people go to their doctor religiously and they just follow what the doctor's agenda is. And other people don't go to the doctor at all unless something, happens and they're forced to go to the physician. What are some good tips and tricks for when you have regular scheduled appointments or if you think something is going on and you need to start a conversation and a
Yeah.
dialogue with the physician?
So it's really hard, even for me as a physician, but I know what to say to like be like the buzzwords, but I think for like the general public, like if you're wanting to start learning about things, especially like, okay, I'm early 30s, I want to start family planning, and you want to go to your doctor, I think having that conversation around family planning, I think if you're go and they're open to having that conversation, that's amazing. Ask as many questions as possible. I would say do your research on the internet before you go to make sure you get all your questions asked. But if you go and they say, well, you don't need to worry about that right now, you probably need a new doctor. Like, because anyone who blows you off when you want and need answers about something is not going to have your best interest at heart. And I think that I tell people this all the time. It's like the racism, people don't check their racism at the door when they walk into the hospital, right? Like it still permeates with patient care. And that can even come from our own kind too. So don't just think because you got a black doctor that, they care about you. Like a lot of this is like, what's it called? We perpetuate a lot of these things. So I think you need to make sure that you don't feel like if your doctor tells you something that's the end all be all. You need to take control of your own health care and get the answers you need to where you feel comfortable. And you may not always get all the right answers. You may not know all the right answers to ask, but your doctor should be telling you so that you're informed. And if you don't feel informed, you're in the wrong place. The other thing is, if there's something that is concerning you specifically and your doctor's blowing it off, I'd sometimes tell people to ask, so what's on your differential with these symptoms I just gave you, right? So then it
Mm,
makes your doctor tell you what they're considering, because sometimes that doctor isn't always thinking about a differential. They will hear your symptoms and be like, oh, you're okay, go away. But then if you ask them to think a little bit critically, like what are you thinking this could potentially be? And then if they start listing things off, you ask them, well, have you ruled all that out? Right?
mm.
And if they say, yeah, we ruled it out by this and that and that and that, you got a doctor. But if they say, no, but I don't think that's what you have, you need to go get a new doctor. Because honestly, like, the
Yeah.
practice of medicine isn't because we're so brilliant and smart, it's that we know diseases and we know disease patterns. And if we think you fit in a pattern, then we work it up to rule it out. And if we haven't done that, then we haven't done our job.
And would you agree or that Black women sometimes we just don't fit the mold. We don't fit the standard prototype of what is in the medical books because a lot of research is not number one done on us, and number two they don't really focus on the things that affect us more as a race. So they're going to look for like the baseline. Okay, this is a general statement or this is a general thing that happens to people, but sometimes things affect us more than others. And that goes for all races. Some Asian cultures suffer from certain diseases and ailments more so than Black and white people. And the same thing goes for African Americans. So, you know,
I wouldn't say we don't fit the mold. I again, so for instance, Asian people have more, like, they'll have more liver, gallbladder diseases and cancers and stuff, but they still present like the book tells you. You know,
okay.
we all present a certain way, but like if your doctor's not asking the questions and they just assume that, oh, you're just complaining being a lazy Black woman, of course you're not going to fit a mold because they haven't evaluated you properly. But there's no disease in the book that Black people, or we haven't been studied really for that it doesn't, we can't be worked up for, that I can think of, you know.
Okay.
I mean,
That's good news.
one thing I think is not studied enough is like how racism and oppression affects our health for us to be able to assess it as a physician. But like for the most part, like heart disease is heart disease. You know, women sometimes will show up differently with their heart disease, but that's women in general. And Black people sometimes show up with different complaints. Like I sometimes will show up with like, I feel like I'm constipated or I'm gassed, and it's actually heart disease. As a, but
Really?
we're taught this, you know. So if the doctor's not paying attention, they're gonna blow you off. But they know better. So this is not we don't fit the mold thing. It's your doctor's not listening to you thing.
No, I love that, and I think I've made a habit of collecting the right physician team around me, and I'm not afraid to be like, you know what, I need someone else, and I think one of the things I grew up, I'm a kid, I'm a '70s kid, so I grew up watching a lot of TV where everyone was getting a second opinion. Get the second opinion if you feel like you
Second,
need.
third, fourth, get all of it.
Yes, if you're going to get three quotes for somebody to work on your house, you might have to get three opinions from a physician if you feel like you're not getting what you need. But I just appreciate the fact that you show up as your authentic self with your beads, and you're going to be in that ER saving lives and being Black. Like that is so important because representation is important. If you end up unexpectedly at the hospital and you see someone that looks like you and understands you and just has that built-in like level of compassion, that's part of the healing to me. Like I love
I
that.
mean, I get my patients that come in, my older ladies with their wigs. I'll go in and I'll fix them. Like,
Yeah,
you know, like let me fix that for me.
but it's just part of it's part of all of this is part of community, and I'm so glad that you decided to stay here with us because you could be doing this in Alabama, you could be doing, I mean, Sappho's all over, but the things that you're doing here and that it kind of started here in Massachusetts is
Mhm.
in this New England area is pretty cool. So wow, we're starting to like get toward the end. We're going to wrap things up, but we like to kind of do some fun things at the end of our conversations too. We like to learn a little bit more about you. So I'm going to ask you three questions and
Okay.
more like off topic. So if you could have any superpower, what would that superpower be?
Hmm. I would say my superpower would be the power of speed. So, like, right now, it would be what I need because I would just hurry up and get everything done and, like, go sleep or live my life. Just because I have so much work. I have my sticky notes here too, they all piling up. So, like, I just, like, if I just had more time to get everything done in a day, that'd be great. So, I think that would be my superpower, at least today. Maybe after next week, it might be something else.
So you'd be like the Flash. You'd just be
Flash. It's all done. It's handled. Olivia Pope.
exactly, exactly. Someone at the summit was saying that they work 2 hours a day. I was like, I want to be that dude. Whatever, however he got himself automated, he's like his own version of the Flash. He like only
Mhm.
works 2 hours a day, and he's like really successful at it. I'm like, he made up his own version to be in the Flash. But
Wow. Yeah.
now you're giving me Madam C.J. Walker vibes and whatnot, modern day. You know what I mean? Just like with all of that. So if if someone could play you in the movie of your life, because
Ooh.
I feel like it's coming,
Oh.
who would play you in the movie of your life?
I would say Brandy.
Ah, Brandy Norwood. Okay.
Yeah, and the reason I say that because I don't think I look like her, but I know growing up, I feel like everyone all when I was younger, they was like, "You look like Brandy." I
Okay.
think we both look very different now than when we were both little, but I think Brandy.
Okay. I like that for Brandy. She's a great actress too, so I could see her pulling that off and being Dr. Alana in the movie that would go, I think it could be our next like Hidden Figures with you. I'm serious because this what
Funny.
you're doing is so cool, is so
That's
important.
so funny.
Let's see. And so three things that you love about Massachusetts, and then one thing that you would change about your Massachusetts experience.
Yeah, three. I will say, I know I talk a lot of crap sometimes just because, I'm very Southern and it's hard to find that same, obviously, it's New England to have that same Southern culture up here, but, and you're always comparing stuff. But the thing I do like about Massachusetts is like, there's so much to do up here. There's so much history. Like, there's so many things to get into. Like, my family comes, I'll take them to like Vermont and Rhode Island, and everything's just so different and scenic and like just I don't know, like something out of a book, right? Like, going downtown and seeing where the Constitution was signed. I'm like, that's kind of dope,
It was fire. We just definitely take it for granted.
Yeah, that was the one thing that I found very attractive when I first moved here, and there's beaches here, there's skiing here, there's go up and further north, more mountains.
Mhm.
But like there's so many different terrains here, which in the South, everything is just you gotta drive hours to get to something different, which I think is very different for me than when I grew up. I also think there's so many opportunities here, right? Like, the healthcare system is a powerhouse in the world here, of the world here. And like, there's so many opportunities. Like, if you have any ideas or whatever, like, there's so many resources and so much money. Like, I don't think I'd be in the same position had I done this in Alabama, right? Just because it requires so much support and and funding and like things like that. And I think I was uniquely in Massachusetts when all of this stuff happened to me, that made me want to do it. And I think you said three things. Um, I, the I know people are gonna say not really, but I lived the last part of my life in Georgia, so we didn't have public transportation, and the MARTA sucks in Atlanta. But I guess compared to like New York, the public transportation isn't bad, but like it's a walkable city, and I appreciate that when the weather's nice. I can walk. I pretty much can walk anywhere from where I live, and that's kind of nice. And if I want to hop on the train, I can hop on the train. I do not put nearly as many miles on my car here as when I lived in the South. So that's a testament. That's really nice. Thing I would change, I would love there to be more community, especially within the Black community up here, for to see more Black people supporting Black people authentically. I think that's one thing I do miss up here, being back home. That community that'll just wrap their arms around you. I don't get that here.
And I can agree with you on that. And I think that that's kind of one of the things that Boston While Black is looking to foster. I know here in Rhode Island there's like a really good sense of community among the folks that are here that are natives, and I'm trying to muscle my way into that community with them. But there's, it is there. It's a matter of finding it and tapping in. But like you said, some in the South, you get there and it's just like, come on, baby, bless your heart, come
They
on,
don't
let me
even know you, that you
get
coming
some of
over
this
for
7 Up
dinner.
cake. Like, I understand exactly, what you're saying is that it's not the same. People are a little bit more, we don't trust as quickly. We definitely like the invite to the house is like after we know you for a little while.
Mhm.
It's a very different vibe. But I hope that we can get there and that we, because we want you to stay. So we want you
Well,
to
I
find
mean, I've gotten my people, but I mean, it's just a cultural difference, you know? Like, you just have to
yeah.
be okay with the cultural difference.
Well, I think that hopefully, because of all the stress that we're going through as a country, that we will start to find these pockets of community and start to dwell in them and use them as resources, start businesses, rebuild our own Wall Streets and things like that. I think, that's very important, and maybe this will force some community that hadn't been there before. So hopefully that will be a thing. But thank you so much for
Thank
joining.
you.
I want folks to know where they can find you, where they can find
Absolutely.
Safo. Talk to us about that.
So right now, on our website, definitely go check out our website. It's Safo Hair, SAFO hair.com. You can find all of our products. It tells you everything about our products. Some of them have been, some of our products are award winning. We have a lot of, you can look at our reviews. We have a lot of blogs on there that are educational around some of the menopausal stuff, the ingredient stuff, and just the beauty justice side of things. In addition, you can find all of our other features if you want to hear other articles or podcasts that we've been on. And shortly, we're going to open up a website for you to drop stories about your own hair journey. So we want to really start building community on the website. We're on pretty much all the social media platforms. We're pretty active on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Safo Hair on all those platforms. And then we're working to ramp up our YouTube with more educational long form and short form content. As far as purchasing, obviously you can purchase on our website. We're also on Amazon. We have a few products on Amazon.com, and you can also find us on Macy's.com. So that's Macy's, the
Love
retail
that.
store, Macy's.com. And we're looking to do some expansion. So hopefully, when you're traveling or in your hotel soon, you'll probably start seeing some Safo as well. So just keep an eye out for us. If you see us, give us a shout out on any of the social media platforms. And then all your listeners today can enjoy a discount of 15% using the code VISIONS15. So we'd love for you to try out some of our products and give us some feedback.
I love that. So I will follow up and I will make sure all of our listeners get that code. So it's going to be Voices 15 for all of you to enjoy a discount to try the products. You're going to love them. There's no doubt about it. Because what's not to love about taking better care of yourself and having a worry-free experience, making yourself beautiful, doing the thing that you have to do. You have to wash and maintain your hair. And I'm guessing we're probably going to see a skin line. I feel the skin line is coming.
Oh, look at you being prophetic. We do have one skin product. It's just not on market yet. So it's coming. Yeah.
I love that, and I'm so glad that you found at the circle that supports you, that encourages you, and that helped you bring this to market for us because we need it as women of all in all stages of our life. So I thank you so much for joining us. This has been amazing, and this is a great way to kind of cap off the series. I think that we may even do another one just because we have so much more, but this episode is definitely one we wanted to get someone who knows what they're talking about
Mhm.
professionally in the house because we just over here complaining and whatnot, but you actually were able to bring some science, some knowledge, and
Mhm.
some homegrown legacy solutions to this talk. So thank you so much
Thank you. I
for
really
coming,
appreciate
and
this
I'm looking
platform.
forward to what you guys have upcoming next. So I will drop that code and follow Dr. Ellana and follow us, share these episodes, be someone else's community.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and we will see you soon.
Bye.